In just 6 minutes, 4 mighty Japanese aircraft carriers were reduced to burning wrecks, and the fate of World War II changed forever. But how did a desperate, outnumbered American force pull off the impossible? June 4th, 1942, a date that would mark the moment the tide of World War II began to turn in the vast blue emptiness of the Pacific Ocean. At dawn, the Imperial Japanese Navy's most powerful carrier strike force steamed confidently toward Midway Atoll, convinced that surprise and superiority guaranteed victory. 4 formidable aircraft carriers, Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu, the same ships that had devastated Pearl Harbor 6 months earlier, carried hundreds of seasoned pilots and aircraft prepared to crush America's remaining Pacific defenses. But hidden behind the calm horizon was a secret Japan did not know. American codebreakers had deciphered their operational plans. Waiting in ambush were 3 U.S. carriers, Enterprise, Hornet, and the hastily repaired Yorktown, carrying outnumbered but determined aviators who understood the stakes. Among them was dive bomber pilot Lieutenant Norman Dusty Kleiss, a young naval officer about to witness history from 20,000 feet above the sea. As Japanese aircraft launched their first strike against Midway Island, American radar detected incoming formations, and U.S. fighters scrambled desperately to defend the base. The skies quickly filled with smoke, tracer fire, and chaos. Meanwhile, American carrier commanders launched their own counterstrike in scattered waves, unsure of the enemy's exact position. Torpedo Squadron 8, flying slow and outdated TBD Devastators, pressed forward without fighter escort. They knew their chances were slim. One by one, their planes were torn apart by Japanese Zero fighters and anti-aircraft fire. Of the 15 aircraft that attacked, 14 were shot down. Only Ensign George Gay survived, floating in the ocean to witness what happened next. Their sacrifice, however, was not in vain. The low-level torpedo attacks dragged Japanese fighters down to sea level, leaving the skies above momentarily unguarded. High overhead, American dive bombers led by Commander Wade McCluskey faced a critical decision. Running low on fuel and unable to locate the Japanese fleet, McCluskey spotted a lone destroyer racing across the ocean. Trusting instinct over uncertainty, he chose to follow it, a decision that would alter history. The destroyer was rejoining the main carrier force. Minutes later, American SBD Dauntless dive bombers broke through the clouds and saw below them the most valuable targets in the Pacific War, Japanese carriers with decks crowded by refueling aircraft, bombs and fuel lines exposed. It was the worst possible moment for the Japanese fleet. At approximately 10:22 a.m., in a span of just 6 devastating minutes, American bombs struck with deadly precision. Kaga erupted in flames, followed by Akagi, struck by a single decisive bomb dropped by Lieutenant Dick Best. Soryu was hit repeatedly and engulfed in fire. 3 carriers were mortally wounded before Japanese defenses could fully respond. The ocean that had seemed to guarantee Japan's dominance now burned with black smoke rising thousands of feet into the air. Yet the battle was not over. Hiryu, the sole surviving Japanese carrier, launched counterattacks that found and struck Yorktown, leaving her crippled and later abandoned. But American scouts soon located Hiryu as well. Dive bombers returned once more, and by late afternoon, Hiryu too was ablaze. In a single day, Japan lost 4 fleet carriers, hundreds of aircraft, and 3,057 sailors and airmen, irreplaceable veterans of earlier victories. The United States lost 1 carrier, 362 servicemen, and many brave aviators, including nearly all of Torpedo Squadron 8. But strategically, the balance of power had shifted. Japan could no longer replace its experienced pilots or industrial losses at the pace America could. The victory at Midway halted Japanese expansion and placed the initiative firmly in American hands. For Norman Dusty Kleiss and the men who dove from the sky that morning, the battle was a blur of screaming engines, plunging descents, and split-second decisions. For historians, it remains one of the most stunning reversals of fortune in naval warfare. Intelligence, courage, sacrifice, and chance converged in those critical moments northwest of Midway Atoll. What began as Japan's calculated trap became a catastrophic defeat. The heroes of both sides fought with extraordinary bravery, bound by duty to their nations and comrades. In the end, the Battle of Midway was more than a military engagement. It was a turning point that reshaped the Pacific War and altered the course of the 20th century. 6 minutes in the sky decided the fate of empires, and the world would never be the same.